Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting close to the end of CCW, the 19th iteration of the leading customer contact event. But we're not quite at the end yet, and thankfully, because I have the chance to speak to two of our premier speakers, people who know the industry, who live and embody the idea of customer centricity, executives, leaders who are trying to transform customer contact in their organization, make it a stronger community. The people I'm talking about are Brian LaRoche from CallMiner and Emily Deragon from Sirius. Thrilled to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, Emily, you came here kind of to speak about your experience working with Brian, your omnichannel analytics journey. What does that really entailed?
So we first decided to go with CallMiner because we were outsourcing our quality program. And, typical 3 calls per agent per month. And we wanted to have more insight into our business. So now we're ingesting 2 million calls a month for customer care, and we're truly getting into the deep and dirty insights of what's happening on our calls, how can it help us with training, how can it help us better forecast, how can it improve agent and customer experience. So we've used it for overall quality and then also to implement a compliance program.
And what I love there, when you reference some of those questions, you said, how can it help us improve? How can it help us make things better? And that really is what I see as the beauty of analytics, the beauty of understanding your customers. It's not what's going on, it's what can we do? Now, Brian, how do you help organizations answer that question and drive positive change moving forward?
Sure. Well, so there are a number of use cases, and so every organization is different. And again, they'll have different drivers. So, Emily cited compliance as one of their elements, but they're equally passionate and obsessed with customer experience and wanting to optimize that customer experience, achieve the highest level of customer satisfaction, and of course, customer retention. And so that's one particular driver. But there's a whole host of use cases, including an ever-broadening interest now in using the data that's being derived from analytics, the billions of words that are spoken every day, and synthesizing them down into meaningful, actionable insights that can be used to apply across a whole variety of customer drivers of interest. So customer experience, operational efficiency, automated and more effective quality assurance programs and whatnot. So the key is to understand what your customers are looking to do, start them off, with a single or a couple of objectives, get them good at understanding those objectives and how they facilitate and improve in those areas, and then broadening their use cases and applications. And quite frankly, SiriusXM is our poster child for an organization that took that guidance, started with some simple applications and some simple objectives, achieved those, and by the way, stunning timeframes, and then said, okay, what's next? So they're a great example, and not only just an example of a customer that's fully leveraging the insights of interaction analytics, but they're also really applying it to across their board. They're looking and understanding, hey, we've done this, now what's the next great idea?
And I think that is so valuable right there, because obviously you need to design your data. You need to have an idea of what you're trying to find out, what your objectives are. But you don't want to be locked down to that. You don't want to be rigid, because the beauty of understanding your customers is understanding whether you're asking the wrong questions, whether there's new questions you need to be asking. So how did you Emily, how did you work through that evolution process where, okay, we got the answers we wanted, now we have to figure out what's next, as Brian said?
Well, so first there's a huge mindset change for us because we were so used to that checkbox, what quality is. But as soon as we got the entire organization on to trended behaviors and then really pinpointing process and policy to be able to say, here's our biggest opportunity for a technology change, how do we make the agent experience better, how do we automate something better so the agents don't have to do so much, and once it gets to the customer, we can just fully listen into what their concerns are.
And there's the actionable component, right? And that was something that Brian stressed. And I think the idea is, analytics, I know from hearing stories from the trenches, I'd imagine yours included, that sometimes you find things out that blow the minds of people within your organization, and just having that raw data gets people excited. But I'd imagine there are other times where you maybe have to tell a story with it. So what are some recommendations you have for making sure that what you're finding makes sense to everyone who needs it to make sense?
So one of the things that we found probably 3 months into it was we were pushing reports out to the business and saying this is what the data is telling us. But the previous, quality partner was saying, oh, you're running at 100% here, you're doing great here. But once you expand it to the data, no one believes it, right? Because your numbers aren't as good as you once thought they were. So one of the things that we're now doing is every time we get a request, we build it, we do listening sessions to really say, look, this is the data, and almost have our different business units validate the data with us. And then they're more bought into, this data is good, we believe it, let's actually make it actionable.
Now, Brian, your company is called CallMiner, yet I know in your workshop this week, and I know just about who you are as a thought leader, you value the omnichannel process. Yeah, you want to see fracture points. You want to understand what really goes on. Sure. So how analytics do they need to evolve to show you what's happening across all your touch points, not just within one touch point?
Sure, and again, our name was, we came out 2002, it was CallMiner. We've kind of broadened our logo and our branding a little bit to be CallMiner Eureka. Eureka is, of course, the baseline analytics engine that comprises our technology. And we did that with the full recognition that we are a multi-channel, omni-channel technology now. So we have the ability, again, to analyze not only voice, but of course any kind of text-based analytics, so chat, Twitter, email, any of those types of different mediums, SMS and things of that nature. And with a broadening recognition that there is a generational transition that's taking place. So, when we're dealing with an organization that, for instance, that's supporting senior citizen healthcare programs, there's a strong likelihood that 99.3% of those calls are going to be voice-based. But as we migrate into services, and SiriusXM is a classic example of a multi-generational, but I think more weighted towards the younger generations, all right? Then you have to have this recognition that the world is changing and the way people want to communicate is changing. And a really open-minded analytics program is one that doesn't predetermine how you should communicate, but rather uses the analytics to understand what are the ideal journeys. What channels do consumers or customers choose to use to be able to achieve whatever their objective is from that call, right? So it's transitioning from just assuming everyone's doing voice to letting the analytics engine, which will incorporate all of these different mediums, and letting them understand, all right, when people are using chat, we have a 86.4% resolution rate on that first dialogue, that first exchange. And how do we now journey that in? And perhaps Emily and SiriusXM is a great use case for understanding when chat is predominant, when voice is the better route, and how can we improve operational efficiencies and, of course, first call resolution for that consumer or that caller by understanding what they're looking to do, what they're looking to achieve, letting the analytics tell you that instead of predetermining that, and then doing your course corrections in your programs and services so you can better self-deflect to self-service or an IVR selection in the tree so that, again, customers can get in and get out and achieve their objectives in the most expeditious time possible.
I think that's huge. I think what's great about that is we all understand, whether not just people within this industry, I think the average person, a lot of what we know about customer service is a good phone etiquette, what a good phone call should sound like. Sure. And now that that's not the case, I think it's more and more important to look to analytics to understand what's really moving the needle.
That's right.
So Emily, from your perspective, obviously, you're using this, as you mentioned, you have multiple generations, you are serving people in other channels. What did you learn about what customers are looking for in those channels that maybe is different than historically in the phone?
Yeah, so we were before very focused on politeness and are you listening to the customer. So now we've been able to really focus on understandability as a whole. A lot of our agents are offshore, so we're able to pick up on, for understandability, is the customer not understanding the agent because of a dialect? Or is it because of how we're communicating to the customer? So we've been able to take the understandability category and trend it out as to, that marketing really didn't make sense to that customer. As a result, the agent can't explain it to the customer. So how do we improve that full experience to filter it back into marketing so agents can have a more productive conversation?
And that sounds so valuable from a performance standpoint, because there's often that whole message that if you want your agents to perform, you have to perform for them.
Right.
And in this case, it seems like there's going to be scenarios where they may not be to blame for the bad performance. You didn't perform for them by if something wasn't explained correctly, they weren't trained correctly, the script wasn't there.
Exactly.
And as an organization, you can now go back to the drawing board and figure all that out so that now that if you do have the right people in their place, they're also going to be able to make those connections.
Exactly.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about, again, let the analytics help you discover what's the optimal path, what's the optimal program or channels to best direct ultimate outcomes. And you'll discover within that just putting a program together, for instance, you may find that an explanation video may be an effective way to conduct training, and you can A/B test that. So you could take, in SiriusXM's case, they have multiple providers in the back end for them. So they could actually take and say, all right, we're going to provide a training set to this community to help them explain this program. We're going to use a video explainer. Then the other one, we're going to use more of a text-based reference. And then we can go take the results from those two organizations and, again, tracing outcomes, tracing customer journeys, determine what was the more effective way. And again, there may be the generational aspects, which you'll also get, by the way, through the metadata that's incorporated into the analytics. So many ways to slice and dice this.
And that's one of the great things I know from working with you in the past and know from hearing you speak. You really look at all the different applications, all the different opportunities that come from analytics. I think there's the obvious, understanding whether the call was successful or not, understanding whether the engagement was good or not. But you're going farther than that. You're looking at, was the training successful? Is the messaging successful? Is there proper coherence between the channels? Sure. And you need to do that because any hint of effort, any hint of a bottleneck, any hint of fragmentation behind the scenes, you can guarantee customers are going to feel that.
Sure. I'll say one other quick example is, so the whole notion of average handle time is a metric of first call resolution and those types of things. We've had organizations that have come to us and said, look, we were driving to a lower average handle time as an overall objective. But when we mapped in what the outcomes of the calls were and the most successful calls that had, let's say it's a sales organization, had the highest close rate, the lowest cancellation rate, they discovered that the calls were actually 1 minute and 14 seconds longer. And so it kind of flips the whole notion of average handle time has always got to be lower. So if you can increase the number of sales and lower the number of cancellations as a result of sales, which, by the way, had a disclosure element in it, so there was a compliance component of that. They did a better job of explaining the program, how they could get out of it, which installed a higher level of consumer confidence, that this person was willing to tell me how I could get out of this if I wasn't satisfied. That actually reduced their cancellation rate.
And what's great about that approach is that could go the other way. We know, we've heard people mocking average handle time. It's all about those lengthy calls. We know in some environments, it very much is about average handle time. If you don't solve the problem quickly, you're going to lose.
That's right.
And so what this really is telling me is the real value here is stop thinking in generalities, understand what's really happening in your organization for your customers, and then make the appropriate changes. Now, Emily, you're obviously here, you participated in the workshop, but you're here as an attendee as well. You're talking to other people in the room, getting to know what's going on in the space. What are some themes or some trends that you've heard from some of your colleagues here?
So it's definitely about trended behaviors now. I think that the industry is moving into this shift of finally understanding, let's not judge an agent on 3 calls. Let's really not even judge an agent. Let's change that whole mindset of failures and you're not good to how do I improve that agent, to let's focus on more opportunities and then feed it back into the business, which is exactly what we've done. We've partnered with Netlink with a lot of training opportunities to really give that agent journey and make sure that we're supporting the agents. And that seems to be a major theme here of just better support of the agents, because then you'll see so many of your other KPIs, just soar through the roof.
And it's supporting them with tools, with training, not just with soft culture stuff.
Exactly.
That's the big evolution that I've seen at our events. I know that people sessions have always done well. People always want to talk about agents because they were agents once, and they wanted to create the best experience for themselves, but they also know no matter how much technology is here, this is a people business. And so that always stands tall. But what I've seen the trend towards is exactly what you're saying. What are the real factors that drive the needle for agents, both in their ability to perform and their ability to feel engaged? And oftentimes it's a combination of cultural mindsets, but also tools, technologies, processes, everything that goes into that.
Exactly.
Now, Brian, from your perspective, there's a lot of vendors here who have some element of analytics in their product. Certainly a lot of vendors who are talking about unification and omnichannel.
Sure.
So what do you want people to remember about CallMiner Eureka versus some of the other theoretically similar vendors here?
Sure. So there are a number of suite vendors here that are doing a variety of things, and God bless them for that. I think that's it's nice to have this kind of Swiss Army knife solution. And I think in many instances that might work for an organization. We're singularly focused on interaction analytics, have been from day one. We don't do anything else other than leveraging our technology to optimize customer engagement. And so all of our focus is not only just in terms of the technology that we've developed and kind of pioneered and lead the industry on, but it's also the support services and all the other elements that go into it. So, dedicating customer success directors to the accounts to help make sure that we have aligned their technology with their business goals and objectives, providing the opportunity to learn from peers and to be able to leverage each other's experiences, because at our core, I know it's our tagline, but we believe that when you listen to your customers, you improve your business. And not only do we advocate that for our customers, it is the moral guidelines that we as a company have. So our organization has improved as a result of that technology and listening to our customers as well.
So what do you say, Emily? Is he telling the truth, or is this just sales?
No, and that's what I even said in the workshop too, is I've been with Sirius for 6 years, and I've done multiple channels of agent desktop to training and different products across the board, and we always have a client success director, and it's, we joke, they're here to take me out to dinner, whereas with CallMiner, that's such a unique feature that we've never experienced of, our client success director's in the weeds with us. She understands our business. She's constantly helping us to analyze the data and make recommendations that from an outsider, it is so much more valuable, because we're so into our business that to get this other concept of, hey, here's what you really could be doing with the product, has been a huge, huge win and asset that they definitely
I think what it comes down to is that if it can't be one customer experience fits all, then it can't be one technology provider fits all. Yeah. And I think you really need to make sure that your technology is adapted to that organization, that you understand their real objectives, their real needs, and help them customize that. It certainly sounds like, Brian, that that's what your team is doing. And it certainly sounds like, Emily, you've kind of benefited from that partnership, that opportunity to help steer the direction and help take real guidance. So I thank you both so much for your insights. It was a pleasure speaking with you. And for CCW Digital, this has been Brian Cantor, live from the Mirage.